Perfect. All right, I think we're all set up. Well, we are the last session of the day. So if you're still with us, thanks for hanging in. Kayleigh and I are here today to talk about reporting, one of our favorite topics. So we're going to be diving into trends, data storytelling, and the future of multifamily reporting. We'll do quick intros. So let me flip this. Okay, perfect. So I'm Nicole and Kayleigh. I'm one of the co-founders here at Digible and then our chief experience officer. So I oversee the experience for our clients, our partners, and our employees. And reporting is near and dear to my heart. So I'm excited to be here with you today.
Awesome. I'm Kayleigh. I'm a senior account manager here at Digible. I work with our clients as well as our client services reporting support team, as we call it, alongside a few awesome other team members. We work on third party and in house reporting initiatives, template creation, template support, as well as team education. So excited to be talking about all things reporting in multifamily today. So, our agenda today really includes data storytelling and metric misconceptions. So, that includes framework and best practices for strong data storytelling, industry metric misconceptions, as well as how to work with your agency on reporting, what to ask for, and how to scale your data, delivering reporting to multiple stakeholders, including multifamily personas, and then the metrics that really matter to these personas. We'll also be walking through Digible's approach to reporting present state as well as future and how we're going to be unifying all the data that we provide.
Awesome. So let's jump into data storytelling. So first and foremost, what is data storytelling? When we think of data storytelling, it's really using complex multiple sets of data to visualize a narrative. So we're pulling in all this different data, we're using visuals, and we really want to provide the so what in a clear way that provides context. So think about what's happening at the property portfolio level and how is really this impacting our ROI that our marketing efforts have had. So we like to really make complex things super simple. So really telling a story with that data.
Awesome. So before telling that story, there's just a few questions to ask. So the first is, who is your audience? So for example, an owner probably wants to know how much I am spending on digital marketing and what's ROI, as well as how many leads am I getting and what is the impact of our occupancy and goals, where as a marketer probably wants to dive into some different metrics. So the second question we ask is what story you're trying to tell. So once we've chosen that audience, what are those key KPIs that you want to focus on? The third is what are our key takeaways and next steps? So reports should really influence action and they should be a jumping off point for your digital marketing strategy. So based on the data you're seeing, what do you need to adjust? Are there platforms you need to adjust, keep things the same, and tweak targeting?
So once you have the answers to those key questions and you know who you're talking to, the next thing to think about is how are you going to lay out this data in a way that makes sense? So what's your framework? We love a good funnel. So we like to think about high level to secondary metrics, or really driving that user down and telling a story that way. So we're going to start with macro metrics. That's going to be anything that's big picture. So think, how much am I spending? How many leads am I getting? What's the ROI? Any type of month over month trends here. So that's all going to be first and foremost. You should get that out on page one. From there, you're going to go into primary metrics. So that's thinking through, how did we get here? What are those supporting metrics that are driving those macro metrics? For that, it's going to be things like campaign performance. So impressions, clicks, click-through rate, anything that's helping you get to those leads and conversions. And then last but certainly not least is going to be your secondary metrics, and that's what have we done? So that's going to be your nitty gritty keyword performance, creative performance, what's helping you get to those impressions and clicks, which is ultimately helping you drive leads. So think about it in a way that you're, outlining a story that you can take the user down this path with you. Some do's and don'ts here. So when we talk about data storytelling, we always like to have clear metrics. So do not data dump. That we are guilty of this internally, where we'll just put a bunch of data on a spreadsheet and try to make sense out of it. That's not going to be the best way to receive information. So don't data dump, making sure you're focusing on metrics that do matter. So answering the question of what is the most important thing you're trying to tell. Always lead with ROI. So show our ROI first thing and foremost. That should be on the first page of your report. And then definitions are super important. So try to define what is a true conversion. We can think about conversions in so many different ways. Is it an actual form fill? Is it a phone call to the property? Is it just a click on this button? think that's one of the most common misconceptions is when you're just saying conversion, you're assuming that the other person knows what you're talking about when you're mentioning conversions. Next up, make sure to use consistent naming conventions so that when you're flipping between reports, between property reports to a roll-up report, everything is super consistent. And you're not confusing your user with the naming conventions you're using. And then we always merge channel data. So making sure that you are merging, if you're talking about Google Analytics, Google Ads, Facebook, merging that data into one to provide that top level metric is super important. And then something that I found super successful is providing a glossary. So defining every metric that you have on every single page.
Awesome. So when we're in that data storytelling, we really want to focus on quality over quantity. So a question that comes up is how many leads did I get? And sometimes that's seen as how we measure success, but truly what has a greater impact on your property's goals is the quality of those leads. So it's best practice initially to really optimize campaigns for quality over quantity. And it's okay to show that on your report. So you can do this in many ways. Something we do here at Digible is showing the quality of calls versus the quantity. So we have that quantity. However, we dive even deeper into how many of those calls were quality, and that's what we focus on. Another thing you can also do is focus on full form submissions in Google Analytics versus button clicks. A lot of times tracking can get in the way of that. However, if you do have the ability to show full form submissions, do it because that's going to really show you the quality of the leads that came through. Awesome. Visualizations. So visualizations, big word, are really your best friend when it comes to reporting and telling a true data story and providing an experience. So there's a few ways you can do this. You can use multiple different widgets, but it's important to be strategic with the widgets that you're choosing to use. So you can use line and bar charts specifically for a connected series of data. So that would be executive summaries. So let's say you have calls, website conversions, and form fills. That can be a great place to have your line and bar charts or conversions over time, metric versus metric comparisons over time as well. You can combine bar and line charts specifically for comparing values in different categories. So we also do this with our call quality. So we can see total calls versus the quality of calls over a set series of time. Pie charts are great too. However, they're really great to show percentages at one specific set of time, not let's say year over year comparison date range data. Somewhere you can use this is really if you're doing a budget analysis on how much you spent on your marketing efforts or your platforms. Let's say you spent 30% in paid search, 20% in TikTok, et cetera, as well as time of day. Tables are great too, but take them with a grain of salt. You want to be careful with how you use tables. They're a great place to organize data. However, they can be a little intimidating at once. So it's a great place for a scorecard for important metrics, as well as slicing and dicing data, as well as a deep dive analysis. So once you've kind of structured your report and discovered this is what I want to show, this is how I want to show it, it's important to add specific colors to draw your audience in. Using brand colors and guidelines is really important to make sure you're consistent with your brand, as well as it draws your audience in. We also are very careful of color contrast. Although a lot of colors can look really pretty on a report, you want to be able to see the data because the data is what's most important at the end of the day. You also want to be mindful of bold colors. Or bold metrics. We recommend bolding your metrics because it's really an easy way for you to identify just important metrics instantly. Let's say this is a marketing manager who doesn't have a lot of time to pull and fully review a report in detail. Having those high level conversions bolded are really nice to easily access that data. And then lastly, month over month and year over trends really help tell a story of how the data has changed and how seasonality has come into play, as well as what the future holds. This next one is really important. So listen up. Don't use Comic Sans. Just don't do it. If you know, you know. It's not pretty and it really doesn't provide a professional experience. So
I think this might be your biggest hot button. I'm going to start sending you all emails and comments.
I mean, if you send me an email in Comic Sans, unless you're Nicole, I might not
Will not
respond.
reply. Awesome. So next up, we're going to dive into some metric misconceptions. And this section is just kind of how to think about certain metrics a little bit differently. So first up, sorry, I went too fast, is bounce rate. So no one come at us. We're not saying don't look at these metrics. We are just saying take the following metrics with a grain of salt. So important things to keep in mind when you're looking at bounce rate is that it's not going to tell the whole story. So things that it doesn't factor for are things like industry site widgets. So let's say a user comes to your homepage, they actually are starting to engage with a BetterBot widget on your site, they're filling out their information there. They might bounce and bounce rate might look super high, but it doesn't really take into account that that was actually a captured lead. So think about that of the experience of your website when you're looking at bounce rate. The other thing it doesn't really talk through is like how quickly the user was qualified. So maybe they did a Google search for 1-bedroom apartments in Denver and they landed right on that 1-bedroom floor plan and they called the property right away. That's a huge success. Bounce rate is still going to look high there. It also doesn't talk about why a user left your website, so you won't be able to gather that metric or that insight from that metric. And so what we always recommend is looking at bounce rate, but then also looking at the user flow in Google Analytics. So how are people engaging with different pages of your site? How are they navigating versus just how they're bouncing?
Awesome. Another one, click-through rate. Don't come at us for this one, but many, marketers focus on click-through rate as the primary metric really for success for your campaign. It's very important, however, it's not that important, and it doesn't really paint a full picture of engagement. So there's deeper metrics you can really focus on. So conversion quality, really outweighs how many users clicked on your ads and the frequency of those clicks. So we want to focus on what happens after the prospect clicks. So did they convert? How did they convert? Did they revisit the website or did they come in through a different channel? So we pulled a few platforms that we run here at Digible and what we focus on instead of click-through rate, or actually in addition to click-through rate. So for paid search, we talked about quality versus quantity. We focus on that primarily versus click-through rate, as well as display, the post-click and post-view website conversion. So after your ad was seen, what happened next? And then same thing with paid social. Awesome. Another one, don't come at us. Average SERP position. So really, AKA, this is your average search position on Google, which has multiple factors that come into play with this metric. So this metric is really an average metric and it's not an actual in the moment position on Google. Even a handful of your searches cannot provide the full picture of thousands of impressions our ads and organic results receive every day. So average SERP position really tells you how the website is ranking for important terms, brand and non-brand. So when it comes to non-brand, there's multiple facets that go into this. So broad keywords, let's say apartments in Minneapolis, 2-bedroom apartments near me, your property might not show up in the #1 spot. And that's actually okay. This doesn't mean your property's failing. This really is due to domain authority. So local businesses, like your property website, have just a much lower domain authority than larger listing sites like the ILS. So think if I'm searching for a 2-bedroom apartment in my city, would you rather see a list of multiple properties or be directed to one site? And then for brand keywords, it's a little bit different of a story, but you likely do want to sit in position #1 or 2. This metric is important, but it's not the most important due to competitors, the market, and seasonality. So while we do value this metric, it's important just not to focus on it too much.
In this next section, we actually did this a few years ago at the summit. I think it was more tied to creative, but this is just how to work with your agency when it comes to reporting. So a few things to keep in mind. So whether you're working with us or another agency, just some tips and tricks. So first of all, visibility is key. Any campaigns that your agency is running, that's your data. So make sure to request access to your data, whether it's through a dashboard, CSV, you should own all of that. So making sure that you're aligned with your agency on the visibility piece of the campaigns that they're running. Second would be request more data. So most agencies, us included, have some type of cadence where they are walking you through reports. For us, we do a mid-month check-in, we do a monthly check-in. Sometimes we're doing that weekly, but the best success is when a client comes to us and says, hey, this is great, love reviewing this monthly. However, I actually need this weekly data for this internal traffic meeting I have. So request more frequency as you need it that aligns with your company goals. Also ask for market trends. So dig a little bit deeper, ask for trends in that market, trends in that platform, ask for some custom analysis that could help you just do a better job of internalizing and making that data more actionable. Another good tip that we've had a lot of success with, and sometimes we will ask our clients this, is we ask how they're using data. So tell your agency how you're using it. So if you are taking these beautiful, pretty branded PDFs, but all you care about is the metrics and you're copying and pasting metrics into an Excel file, we can make your lives easier. We can export that via FTP, CSV, maybe we do a custom data share. So really talk your agency through what you're doing on the end goal. So how are you communicating that internally? And we can help assist you there. And then last but very much not least is just increased communication. So be very clear on, properties that are on your watch list, give specifics to your agency on what your challenges are. That's really just going to help improve the relationship and improve the reporting that your agency is providing you.
Awesome. It's also important to request segmented and scaled data. So there's multiple ways you can request this. So if you're looking for a report for a marketing manager, regional managers, ownership groups, or even just unit segmentation, so property type, property size, or marketer size, there's ways to slice and dice this data for those specific stakeholders. So roll-up reports can provide this data aggregated. This will show you a specific segment of data, as I mentioned, how you'd like it sliced and diced in a collected acquisition behavior and conversion report. So many ways to slice and dice data. And as Nicole mentioned, it's just important to just ask if it's a possibility because typically it is. Awesome. Next, we'll be discussing multiple multiple multifamily, that is a tongue twister, personas, their goals and the metrics that matter to each of these personas. So reporting is not just for one person, it's really for all roles. So if you're working with someone who owns or operates one property, or let's say 100 properties, a marketing manager, a property manager, they're all different roles and they all have different needs. And you likely don't have time to scrutinize the reporting metrics and analyze all the information available and decide what do I need to send. So it's important to understand these stakeholders' needs on reporting metrics that matter to each of them with all of the data that is widely available.
And here's some examples of what that looks like based on persona. So if you're delivering a report to an owner, they're probably going to care about budget, lead correlation, cost per lead, NOI, what their occupancy trends are, and any seasonality in that market. You're probably not going to want to bog them down with some of the metrics that a marketer cares about. The marketer is going to want to see everything. All of that plus, the campaign insights, KPIs, roll-up reports, data segmentation by region. So know your audience when you're putting together these reports is super helpful, and then know when to keep it high level. So we've had a lot of really great operator conversations recently where it's like we just strip out all of those campaign metrics, but we're talking about basically NOI or ROI. What did I get for the bang for my buck? And then scaling it accordingly. So make sure that you know who you're delivering these reports to, and you're not just data dumping and giving them maybe too much that they can't handle at that time to make decisions.
Awesome. So next we're going to be kind of talking about Digible's approach to reporting present and kind of how that works with those stakeholders. So we'll be sharing how we provide these reports, the cadence of reporting, as well as how we structure our data. Awesome. So first process. Right now at Digible, we provide property and roll-up reports monthly to our clients based on that macro to micro conversion flow trend that we shared previously in the reporting framework. We also work with different stakeholders. So we provide regional roll-up reports, monthly roll-up reports. It kind of just depends on how that data has been requested to be segmented, but there's lots of different ways we slice and dice that. And then in addition to the data you see, we also have a dashboard that has data in live time. So you have access to that data. It has very nitty gritty data. So everything from impressions to conversions all the way down to keywords. So we talked about macro to micro flow and framework. So we're going to kind of walk through just the flow of our Digible reports and how we use that framework. So this is our overview page. As you can see, we also kind of call this our executive summary. And this summarizes the month's conversion, budget, and media mix to showcase how we stacked up last month, our conversion trends, and then how budget had an influence on performance. So these are what we would call our macro metrics. And this page primarily focuses on Digible's influence on the website, call and performance data, not necessarily CRM data. While this data does port into your CRM, this is really what is happening on the website and how prospects are calling the website. Awesome. This next page kind of walks through our website traffic and shows the channels used on how prospects get to our website and how they're converting and how sessions are stacking up month over month. So these are also our primary metrics. And then we drill straight down to campaign performance. You can see in these screenshots, this is our SEO and paid search performance. We have many other campaigns we run here at Digible, but these are just an example. So the third part of our data storytelling journey focuses on the primary and micro metrics. So you'll kind of get a small glimpse into those secondary metrics. So overall, through Digible's reporting, we're focusing on how our campaigns performed and how this impacted the website performance.
Cool. So Kayleigh teed this up nicely on the future of multifamily reporting, but it really is unifying your data all in one place. So pulling in your CRM data, Yardi, RealPage, and Trada, we now have API connections to all of those data sources. And so what we're working on is being able to show your current occupancy, your total number of leads coming in, your leasing velocity merged together with that campaign data. So your cost per lead, your total conversions, to really be able to tell a story and make it a little bit more actionable. The next piece of that is making reports more interactive. So that's going to be things like more advanced, enhanced filtering. So being able to filter by persona, by market, by region, by property type. So internally, we do a lot of analysis on data segmentation by lease up versus stabilize, and really having that being able to be a filter that makes it more actionable and a little bit more interactive in your reports. And then the last piece here, which I know David hit on in his session on the roadmap, is really our vision to become more of a marketing operating system, but that starts with having everything in one place. So being able to look at your budgeting, your recommendations on what to spend, where to spend it, also what is happening historically with reporting, and then your workflow. So your meeting notes, having all of that in one place, that is where we really see the future of reporting going. And then beyond that, it's really digging into some advancements on certain segments. So enhanced call data being one of those things that can support the macro metric of total lead volume. So being able to dive in deeper to say, okay, great, I'm looking at total quality leads, but what is happening with those quality leads? When are they coming? So doing some segmented heat mapping by time of day. What keywords are driving those leads, and really closing the loop on, okay, here's what I'm spending on certain channels, here's the calls that are coming in, and here's how I can make it a little bit more actionable. So with our Fiona Calls product, you can actually dive into not only quality leads by time of day, but missed calls to really get a sense of what is happening on site. Is there an opportunity for me to talk to the on-site staff to optimize schedules, or to even potentially day part campaigns to not send calls during certain times of day? So really getting a little bit more advanced when it comes to the total quality leads that we're seeing. And then last up here is really merging everything together from a timing standpoint. So right now, so much of the industry is focused on historically what is happening. So, last month, here's what I spent, here was my campaign performance, maybe a little bit of what's happening currently month to date, but really taking that data, merging it together and using that to predict the future. So forecasting leads by looking ahead versus looking behind to say, okay, what is my exposure coming up over the next few months? How many leads do I need to close the gap to really drive leases to get ahead of that exposure? And then layering in that next piece of like the benchmarking data. So is this performing good or bad based on these different segmentations that you have deemed appropriate? So really taking it, making it more actionable, and then giving this data to your key stakeholders to be able to justify and plan better when it comes to your overall property budget. And I think that's up. That's it for us. Yeah, I think we wrapped up a little bit and caught back up here on timing. So we haven't looked at the chat, but we can pop into the chat to see if there's any questions.
Comic Sans. What is new again?
That would be a comment from David.
Don't use Comic Sans.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if anyone has any questions for us around reporting, please feel free to drop them in the chat or just unmute and ask any questions that you may have. But we loved chatting about reporting. We could probably talk about reporting for days. So happy to answer any questions or do a follow up here as needed. So thank you all.
Thanks.